All right, video will be up and running in just a second. And just let me know when you want the PDF file up on your screen too.
Can you put the agenda up first?
Yep, give me just a second, and we're on as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with number one. So I've spoken a couple of times since our last meeting with Greg regarding what was happening with the streetscape and developers. And as I think we might have touched on last time, he's had several meetings with different developers, and they all appear to be willing to do something for us in terms of easements to allow the Greenway to move north. The problem is that many of them, first of all, as I think I mentioned last time, several of the developments that were planned have now changed, either because of COVID, or the developers have backed out of the plan to develop those particular pieces. So new developers have stepped in, but they don't even have their own site plans developed yet, because they're working through the town to see what the town will allow, what traffic implications there will be. So it's difficult for them to say, yes, we'll give you an easement, in this area, without them knowing exactly what their site plan is going to be. So the good news is, they all seem willing to work with us with some kind of an easement. The bad news is it's going to be a while before they get their site plans, drawn up and at least conceptually approved by the town, before they can tell us where those easements might go. So in my discussions with Greg, I said, well, right now you're talking to them conceptually about, having an easement. We need to show them this is where we'd like to go. So at least they have an idea of, the directions we'd like to take. So Dan, if you could bring up those two maps. So I had Greg take the maps and sketch out two different scenarios. And these maps are basically one north of the Four Corners and one south of the Four Corners. So Greg has indicated on these with a dotted line these different routes. So if you look at both pages, the first page is south of the Four Corners, and our preferred route would be number 2. Number 1 would be the alternative. If you could bring up the next map, Dan. So that number 2 would then hook into number 4 and take us across Federal Road and behind Riverview. The alternative you see there as number 3 would be coming up Laurel Hill Road, coming across to Federal Road, and then up to Newberry Village on the west side of Federal Road. So obviously the reason that's not the preferred route is because that whole section of the Greenway would then not be along the river and would basically just be along Federal Road. So at least now we have something to show the developers. And in the case of the development that was, if you remember, where the dotted line is that's going horizontally or almost horizontally for number 4, that's where that intersection would be. And on the west side would be a condo development, which I don't remember the name of. The one on the right side was also going to be a condo development. That's one of the properties that has now changed hands. So that one is sort of starting from scratch again. But Greg has met with the developer and discussed, what we would like to do. But again, it's going to be slowed down because, one was called the Enclave, which I think is the one on the west. I forget what the one on the right was called, but it's the one on the east side of Federal Road that's now changed. But at least, having these maps, at least, Greg has something to show the developers, and hopefully, we'll start getting some sense of what their developments are going to look like and where we might be able to get these easements and whether we're going to end up, which of these routes, both north and south of the four corners, we're going to be able to take. Okay, Dan, if you could, any questions on that? And just as an aside, I actually got an email the other day from Nelson Malwitz, who's the president of the Newberry Village Condo Association, just asking me what was going on. So I filled him in basically with what we just discussed. Okay, Dan, if we could go back to the agenda. And if you could bring up the News Times article. I wasn't sure if all of you had seen this, and there's not really a lot to discuss. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it and what the article said. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing that none of us haven't known before, but there was a whole section on the Greenway, so I wanted to alert you to that.
I don't think I actually have a link to that article.
Ah, okay. Well, I thought it was one of the files I sent you, but maybe not. All right, I will send you the files and I'll highlight where it is so you can each take a look at it. Have you seen it? Any of you seen it before? This was about probably 2 weeks ago, I would say. So, and it was an update on the all of the different projects that were going on in town. So it talked about the new school, it talked about streetscape, it's talked about the Greenway. So it talked about a whole bunch of different things. So I will send you that article. If you remember from our last meeting, out of the 4 or so potential sources of funding, the DEEP grants was the only one that could be used for either soft costs or construction. I requested an update from WestCog regarding the dates for the next round of funding, and I got an answer today that nothing has been set yet. So we still have no idea when the next round of DEEP funding will actually occur. So I'll just keep an eye on that. I keep in contact with WestCog because we have to go through them for the funding anyway. So I figure they'll be one of the first to know about it. Okay, lastly, I wanted to spend a little time on this. The rec funding the Recreation Enhancement Council funding. So we talked about doing an e-blast and social media solicitation. Maureen sent me the file of the names that we got from the surveys. So we do have that list to use. And Mary updated me today, actually, that whereas we thought we could not use a park and rec list for this purpose, she reread the guidelines 18 times, she told me, and said that we are allowed to use the park and rec list. So Mary, how many names are on that list? If I remember, it's like 2,000 to 3,000.
Yeah, so we have a list that we have captured through Constant Contact, and then we have a list that we've captured through our eTrack software. So depending on which list or if we go through both lists, but altogether, I would say we probably have a couple of thousand email addresses.
Okay, so we probably should do some kind of a merge purge between your two lists as well as the park and rec list so that we're not hitting people up twice. So Dan, I'm going to, well, anybody who can answer this. I'm not quite sure the easiest way to do that unless we just take the lists and put them in Excel and sort them. Is that the easiest way to do it?
Pretty much, yeah. Putting in Excel, grouping the names together. There may be some quick ways to get rid of duplicates from it there too.
Okay.
I thought that I sent that list to Mary already, and she's already done that.
You did, Maureen. Actually, I have it imported into Constant Contact already, and Constant Contact will not duplicate mailing. So even if I select a recipient from like a Park and Rec list and the Greenway list, it's only going to go out to them once.
Okay.
So we have that in place already.
About that then.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but so prior to us sending this email blast out, I need to open a bank account, which I'll probably do at Union Savings Bank. We'll probably need to open a PayPal account and link the bank to PayPal. Are there any other suggestions on what else we might want to offer people as a way of making a donation? Do you think that we should have Apple Pay as well?
Is there a charge for Apple Pay?
I don't think so. I mean, unless they charge companies. I've opened an Apple Pay account and there was no charge to do it. So unless they charge companies, I don't think there is.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not the person using it, but the recipient is what I.
Oh, that I'm not sure about.
I mean, we had talked at one point in time about having a special account where people could write a check and it could go into a special account. I think Mary said they needed to set that up with the controller.
Yeah, I don't think we need that if I open this bank account, that we can go right directly into the bank account because we're going to be soliciting on behalf of the
Okay.
Recreation Enhancement Council, not Park and Rec.
Okay.
I'll look into Apple Pay and see what if there are any charges. But even if there are charges to people who donate, people who have an Apple Pay account already are aware of what those charges should be, and they're electing to donate through there.
Jay, I'm not an expert on any of these platforms, but I did recently open up or set up a Venmo account for myself.
Uh-huh.
I know a lot of the school systems, you know, PTOs and such, at least for our school system, seem to use Venmo as a form of payment as well. So I don't know the pros and cons of that versus others, but just to kind of throw that into the mix. And then, you know, do we want to have a paper and pencil kind of way for people to still donate who don't feel comfortable donating through electronic platform, rather? So if they're emailing or they're mailing a check to a PO box or to Park and Rec, you know, rec care of Park and Rec for us to forward on to Rec, maybe that might make some sense too.
How difficult was it to set up the Venmo account?
It took me about 10 minutes to do. So it was not difficult for me personally. I did it as, you know, personally it was fine.
Okay, so I apologize.
I have one too. That was really easy. I have a Venmo account. It was easy to set up.
Okay. I apologize. I failed to add that as one of the things I need to do. Is I will be opening a PO account, PO box, so that any checks that aren't mailed or correspondence can go right to the PO box. So what I'm planning on doing is writing up the email, and I will forward it to all of you to review. But basically, I'm going to give a very brief history of, you know, why the Recreation Enhancement Council was founded. That it was instrumental in getting the Greenway Phase 1 built, and we're now soliciting funds to both resurrect the Recreation Enhancement Council organization itself, as well as to use the funding for various projects to help push along the extension of the Greenway to New Milford. I want to be transparent in letting people know that some of these funds will be going to, you know, help resurrect the Recreation Enhancement Council. I'm not going to get specific to say, you know, with the state of Connecticut, but as long as I'm upfront, we're upfront saying that, you know, this is how the funds will be used, I don't think that that's going to put anybody off from donating. So I will try to get that email written this week and sent out to you, and then maybe we can look at, you know, in the next week or two, sending the email blast out. So the last question that I have is, do we use a service like Constant Contact, or do we just figure out a way to send this out ourselves? Mary, what do they charge you to do a Constant Contact mail blast, email blast?
So Jay, what happens is we pay an annual fee for our account, and then we don't get charged per email. So we can send out, to the best of my knowledge, an unlimited amount of emails to those people on our contact list.
Okay. You don't happen to know what that annual fee is, do you?
It's based on the number of contacts that you have, and I want to say, don't quote me, but it's in the ballpark of around $400 a year for our contact number.
Okay, so we're probably not going to be able to do that for this one because we don't have any money right now. We could do them for future ones, set up an account with them, but so if we were to take the list that we have, Dan, do you have any suggestions on this? Do we just take the list and send it out as blind CCs to everybody, or is there an easier way to do this?
If it's a small enough list, blind CCs will work, but you do have to be careful because a lot of email providers will cut off if they see too many messages going out at once. As a free option, depending on how many you have, there are services like MailChimp. They don't give you as many features or tracking abilities as you get from Constant Contact. And actually, from what Mary was saying, looking quickly at the town account, depending on the number of contacts, our case, we have, I think, a little bit over 3,000 contacts. We were looking at about $65 a month normally, but if you prepay for a full year, they give you discounts back on some of it.
is that number too high for MailChimp?
I'd have to look into it a bit. I can't remember offhand what their free accounts are limited to versus the paid accounts.
Would you mind doing that for me?
Not a problem.
Okay, that would be
Right.
great.
I guess you got to be careful too, because if you send out too many, then they mark it as spam. So I don't know what that limit is.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the limits offhand either, but I know for Brookfield Town Hall, we have Office 365. I've seen not actually warnings on any of our accounts, but warnings in the system before of like there are certain thresholds before it starts mass marking it as spam.
Sure.
I'll just say that I've tried that. I've been shut down on spam a couple times when I try to write my congressmen and senators. So it's a fairly low number in the few hundreds. So my other suggestion is there any chance of doing some sort of web page or link off the town rec site or some site off the town?
Do we have, Mary, don't we have a microsite for the Greenway now?
We don't have a lot, Jay. I mean, we have a Facebook page for the Greenway that doesn't have, a huge following yet.
Right.
We have, information about the Greenway, but we don't really have, I wouldn't really call what we have currently a microsite.
Okay. So I think, Andy, we could look into expanding what we have there and see what we're able to post regarding rec. But since somebody mentioned it, should we do something on our Facebook page, some kind of an announcement for donations?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well. A couple of the other organizations that I belong to that are nonprofits and certainly religious ones, they all have a link anywhere that they're exposed on social media. They always have a link that says, send us money or donate to us. So that would be very important to do that, because if somebody's reading it and they support your cause, then of course and they would like to send money, that would be great for them to do it right off the website. And typically they do that with PayPal, and you send them $100 and they get 97 or whatever it is. So
okay, so Dan, I just saw your note. Up to 2,000 is free, and above that is $10 a month.
Yeah, it looks like they have a few different plans available, but after the free one, the $10 a month is the next one up. Basically, again, versus Constant Contact, it's just that it's more just sending. It doesn't have as much on the analytics or custom stuff. But for what you guys are doing, it sounds like that's what you'd be looking for.
Well, certainly on the first one, I think that would suffice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other thoughts about what we should be doing to raise awareness and fundraise?
just a comment on your setting up the bank account. You'll need the EIN number from the Rec Council when you set that up.
Yeah, thank you. I have it.
And may possibly also your determination letter from IRS.
Okay. Yeah, I've got to set up an appointment with the bank and go see them. Okay, well, that's all I have.
Jay,
Any other thoughts or comments?
I have a thought, Jay. I would think that we could get some information about rec on the main page of the town's website as well, and it can probably get a mention in the next issue of the Brookfield Spotlight. Typically, the Spotlight goes out on the 1st of every month, and the deadline for submission is about 10 days in advance of the 1st of the month. So if that's of interest,
What is the
letting Ginny
Brookfield
know that we'd like
Spotlight?
the Brookfield Spotlight.
Yeah, what
That's
is
the
it?
monthly. It's a monthly email newsletter that has information from the first selectman and then from all the departments, and then different organizations will also sometimes include information if they have anything important to let folks know about. So
the Spotlight is a town sponsored thing?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm sure that the senior center, they have a large mailing too. They would, I'm sure, include anything we ask them to do.
Okay, well, to answer your question, Mary, yes, we should look into that, and I think it would be useful.
You might want to also look and see if the Brookfield patch, I know it's not that great, but the Brookfield patch can be of any benefit to you.
Okay,
The library also has their correspondence also. I don't know what other in town. I mean, I know the library and the senior center and Steve Dunn, but of course,
yeah,
Mary's.
I mean, I'm hoping that
Correspondent.
this first one gets us enough money so that I can get all of our paperwork current with the state. Because the last thing I want is for people to, be looking for, looking to donate, and they go to the Connecticut site and somehow find that we're in arrears or we haven't filed the necessary paperwork, and then that, gets publicized, and, that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I think some of these other suggestions are great ideas, but I think we got to get, the initial amounts of money in first, and get the paperwork sorted out, and then we can open up these other avenues.
Is there a goal for the funding amount that you're looking for, Jay?
Looking for about $500 to $700.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, with that kind of a list, I would think we should be able to get that relatively easily, but it's still 2020, so anything could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with these, but obviously quite a few people in government and ex-government people have made an awful lot of money off it. But GoFundMe pages,
Yes.
Just a thought. Apparently it's not taxable either. I thought it was, but it's not.
Yeah, so, I at some point we will do a GoFundMe, but it's for the same reason I don't want to do it now, because, like the GoFundMe, whoever sponsors the GoFundMe page may do some kind of background work on the organization and find out that, well, we haven't filed our Secretary of State forms for a number of years, and either refuse us or publicize that somehow. And, so I think we'll do that down the road as well. In fact, I don't know that we should be doing a GoFundMe page until we have a pretty good idea of what the route is going to be, because I think that's what would drive donations from the GoFundMe page. We say, here's the route. Now we need money for, engineering costs, for, whatever else, traffic studies, and eventually construction. And, if we can be more, the more information we give and the more concrete it is, I think the more successful a GoFundMe campaign will be. All right, well, thank you all for your time. If nobody has any other comments.
Yeah, Jay, I have a question. Have
Sure.
you talked to any of the group up in New Milford lately?
I have not. I've thought about doing it several times, and then I forget about it. So I will make that contact and maybe even invite them to be on our Zoom for the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering how they were making out.
Yeah, I think everybody's been slowed down because of COVID.
Sure.
But I haven't, and Tom O'Brien's not really involved anymore. So,
Right.
Yeah, I'll look up. I forget the woman's name, whether it was Paula or something like that.
I think it was Lisa.
Lisa. I'll look her up and touch base with her. Okay.
All
So
righty.
thanks again, and we'll plan to have one more meeting before Christmas, and then then hopefully we won't have to meet again till 2021, and things will be better.
So in the meantime, Jay, are we to be looking for something that you're circulating to us to edit or make suggestions on?
Yes, I'm hoping to write that email within the next few days, and I'll send it out for your comments.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Jay,
Yeah.
thanks for all the work you've been doing.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you for hanging in with us, because I know we're not making a lot of progress yet, but as Mary can well attest to, the first phase took 15 years, so.
Yeah.
Mary, I
Slow and
also
steady
wanted-
wins the race.
That's right. Mary, I also wanted to tell you, I forgot to mention this. And I honestly don't even remember where it was, but I ran into Dennis. And we had I was at Bagel Man one Sunday morning. We had a nice chat, and we're going to have lunch soon.
Awesome. Glad to hear that.
So, all right, again, everybody, thank you. Dan, thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye,
No problem.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody.
bye.
Bye.